Hello, welcome. Hello and welcome. I'm Dan, your friendly fishmonger at dansfish.com. We do this live stream every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. That's 9 Eastern for those that might be mountain challenged. And what we do is we talk about fish. We geek out about aquariums, keeping aquariums, everything related to freshwater aquarium fish keeping. So that's kind of what you're in for. If you're not into aquariums and fish and all that, well, hello and goodbye, because you're probably not going to last very long. But if you do like that stuff, you are in the right place. We're going to start with our shipping report, and then we'll get to our giveaway, which is a pretty darn exciting giveaway today, if I do say so myself, courtesy of Ed's Aquatics. But before we get into that, the shipping report. Last week when I reported, we were at 98.85% success over the last 12 months. That means that 98.85% of the fish that we have sent out have arrived to our customers alive and in good shape. So that's according to customer reports. Today, our total is 98.85%. So it didn't move at all. So nothing changed. 98.85% is where we've been for the last 2 weeks. Except for, that's the 12-month running total. Except for if you look at the 6-month running total, we have improved by 0.04%. So we actually did a little better than last time we talked. We've done a little better, but that doesn't reflect in the 12-month running total because it's not a big enough number to change that larger total. That's a lot of fish are included in that 12-month running total. So that is the shipping report. I looked it over and it doesn't look like there were any large numbers of losses of any one species. It's just an occasional one here or there. One of the best things is we shipped 80 rummy nose to a customer that lives all the way out in Connecticut. If you're watching, hello, good to see you. You know who you are. And everyone arrived in good shape except one. They only lost one. I wish it was 0, but when it comes to rummy nose, known to be very persnickety, very sensitive in the shipping area, 1 out of 80, I wish it was 0, but 1 out of 80 ain't so bad. So, yeah, doing pretty good. It's that funny time of year where we're sending to some places where their high is 104 was the record for this week. I believe that was somewhere down in Texas. You guys in Texas, man, it looks like it's getting hot down there. And then there was another place where the high was in the 30s. The lows were in the 20s, the high were in the 30s. Where was that? I think that was Colorado or maybe somewhere down in Utah, going through kind of a cold snap. So the weather across the nation is very different from place to place, which makes it pretty challenging to do the heat packs right. So to that end, I'm going to ask for some help. If you wouldn't mind, if you receive fish from us, taking the temperature of the water in the bags once they arrive, and sending us an email, hello@dansfish.com. That's HELLO @dansfish.com. And just let us know what the temperature was. And if you measure the temperature at the top of the box, if there's a heat pack, for example, in the box, it'll heat the top of the plastic on the bags pretty hot. So if you just take like a temperature gun and shoot from the top, it'll be misleading. So if you could actually lift up the bag, put it down on a piece of styrofoam or some kind of non-temperature transmitting surface, I guess, and then take the temperature, that would be more accurate. Or put the temperature gun down in the bag in the bottom by the water and do it that way. Or take a thermometer and sink it down in the bottom. But we want to know the temperature of the water. And I think sometimes people don't realize that if they just take the temperature from the top, that the temperature up there at the top of the bag is vastly different than the temperature of the water itself. So if you could get the water temperature for us, we would appreciate that feedback. We do a pretty darn good job, but we're continually trying to learn. We're trying to collect a bunch of data, so eventually we can have software decide how many heat packs to put of each size in each box, to a point anyway. I think that if we do that right, I think that we can make it so that the software does a better job than I do personally. I think we can take out some human error by just following the data. So the human error isn't large, but I want to get rid of it. I want to make myself obsolete. But also, just continually getting the feedback will help me adjust as I decide what heat packs to send, or if I send any heat packs at all. So that's kind of what's on forefront of the mind here for me, as I try to make sure that the fish we ship out arrive to you in good shape. All right, so that's the shipping report. Let's get to the giveaway. I'm very excited about this one. This is for a beautiful Goodeid. This is Skiffia multipunctata. It comes from the location on the screen here. I'm gonna try to say it. Tangansicaro, that's what I'm going with. Skiffia multipunctata from Tangansicaro. These are provided by Ed Motes of Ed's Aquatic Exotic Store. There's a store here on Get Gills. I'll link that down here. He's got several different types of Goodeids that he works with. So there's a link to his store there if you want to see some more of his stuff. A couple things about Skiffia multipunctata. First of all, look at the pictures. Like, this is a beautiful one. If I take off the location, we'll see even more. Like an absolute stunner of a fish. Yellow with nice contrasting gold, big dorsal, which the males display. Nice bold contrast. I like those big bold black spots contrasting with the rest of the fish. It's a beaut. Unfortunately, it is quite endangered. This is the Goodeid working group. If you are into Goodeids, aka split fins, I'll link this. If you want to learn more about those kinds of fish, the Goodeid working group is a wealth of knowledge. A bunch of fish nerds that are focused on this specific group of fish. And one of the reasons they're focused on it is it's highly, highly endangered. A lot of these Goodeids just are in big trouble in the wild. And the reason is they come from limited habitats, very small, kind of isolated habitats oftentimes. And the areas that they live are very arid and dry. All the way from like Nevada in the United States on over to the West Coast and down through northern Mexico. So if you can imagine being in that arid kind of environment where there's not much water, that water's in high demand. So agriculture is, I'm not trying to demonize agriculture, but it's a reality that sometimes the water in these habitats gets used up for agriculture. And that has all kinds of impact on the fish and their ability to survive. Sometimes it downright dries up their habitat. Other times it just alters it enough that it's very difficult or impossible for the fish to survive. Pollution's another big problem. Rerouting of water, pollution, all these things. And so this species in particular is endangered in the wild. It used to have a fairly, not massive range, but it used to have, let's look at pretty pictures while I talk. But it used to have a much larger range. Now it's restricted, I believe, to a single river drainage, and a lot of that river drainage, the lower half of the river drainage is getting polluted and it's kind of encroaching up as populations expand. So highly, I don't know if highly endangered, because that's a specific thing, but it's endangered for sure. And some of the Goodeids are literally extinct in the wild. There's been a few reintroductions and things, but it's a precarious existence if you're a Goodeid. There's a program called CARES, which a lot of you probably know about. Here's the Facebook group, and here is the website. I'm going to link the website. Skiffia multipunctata is a CARES fish. So if you go to cares.org and you go here and you click search, it'll bring up Skiffia multipunctata. And you can find out more about the fish, why it's endangered. And something that's really cool that CARES does is it keeps track of people that are breeding the fish and how many they have available. So we get a sense of how many there are in our aquariums. So that if the wild populations continue to disappear, we can hopefully help preserve that fish in our aquariums, or as they continue to disappear, I should say. And something else that's really cool is if you're breeding a Cares fish and you're like, I've kind of line bred these for several generations, it's probably time to get new blood in there so the genetics don't go bad, then you can find other people that through the Cares program that are breeding that fish and trade fish. So you kind of disperse your gene pool a little bit to help sustain the fish long term. So I think that's really cool. Here is another Facebook group. This is the Goodeids and Rare Livebearers group, focused on the, what should I say, acquisition and husbandry and preservation of Goodeids. So if you are interested in winning a really cool Cares fish, this is the second species that's been donated by Edward Motes. Hashtag Cares. Enter that in the chat and you'll be entered to win a trio of Skiffia multipunctata from whatever that location was. Hashtag CARES. No spaces. Caps don't matter. And you will have a chance to not only keep an amazing little live-bearing fish, but also to help preserve it. It's fish keeping with a purpose. You know, fish keeping's fun no matter what, but when you can add that purpose of preserving a species to it, then it gets all kinds of more meaningful. So, all right. So thanks again to Ed from Ed's Aquatics. What is it? Ed's Aquatic Exotics, and for providing the fish for the giveaway. And that is now rolling. Okay, I see a lot of people entering. Let's check Nightbot. Yeah, it looks like it's going well. So, all right, that is the giveaway, and I think it's a really good one. I've never met a Goodeid I didn't like. Here we've had Skiffia francesca, I believe is how you say it, which is, you know, closely related to the multipunctata. Beautiful little fish, did great at 79 degrees, which is how we keep our fish room. We've had trout Goodeids. We currently have Xenotoca dodroi here at damsfish.com, which is, I think, one of the prettiest. Let me show you this fish. I think it's one of the prettiest Goodeids. Xenotoca dodroi. The species has been verified by none other than Greg Sage, who came up and looked at our group. And we've been spawning, this colony has been going for, I don't know, 4 to 6 generations at this point. We've been going for a while. But I like this thing. I just think that this blue and red is a nice contrast. And what we aren't picking up very well in the pictures is the extreme iridescence throughout the fish. You kind of get a sense of it there. Or here. But one of the, I think one of the prettier of the Goodeids. Definitely a neat little fish. Yeah, the Goodeids are interesting enough in others. Some people call them split fins. I'm not sure if all Goodeids are split fins, but not all split fins are Goodeids. I'm not quite sure. I think they're all kind of this. I think that term is used generally. But they're interesting enough and variable enough that there's hobbyists that just do that and pretty much nothing else. There's that much variety and that much to learn about these fish that it could be a complete hobby by itself. People do that. And there's something really cool about them, which is, I think I talked last week about how they nourish their young in utero, so to speak. Most fish don't do that, but the mother actually nourishes the young, kind of analogous to how a placental mammal would do it. Not quite the same, but it's the same idea. But something else that's neat about Goodeids is they're a live-bearing fish, but some of them still lay eggs, or at least really closely related to Goodeids lay eggs. Kind of like some killifish are internally fertilized, which is strange. So there's this really kind of a crossover that the lines get blurry when you start talking about some of the live bears and the killifish, to where there are some killifish that practice internal fertilization, which is crazy. Even some annual killifish which do it, which is even more crazy. And some live bears that don't have live birth. So I don't know. I just think it's kind of, we often think of things in terms of black and white, right? We take a thing, we put it in a box, we want to keep it in the box because that makes sense to our minds. But the truth is there's a lot of overlap, a lot of transition, a lot of gray area in nature, because things are constantly in progress and in process in nature. It's not like a thing is done and completely separate from what came before, what's happening simultaneously, or what is to come, right? So I don't know, that all keeps me on my toes. Anyway, let's get to your questions and comments. Before I do that, I want to thank our moderators for being here and doing what they do, keeping the chat running smoothly. Much, much appreciated to each and every one of the moderators who volunteers their time. How generous is that? Volunteers their time to do this for us. Thank you. And with that, let's get to your questions and your comments. Let's see here. The first one I see is, sorry, there's a lot of questions and comments that were left up above before I announced how to enter the giveaway. All those got cut off when all the entries went in. So if you left a question or comment above that point, feel free to leave it again, and I'll get to it as I go down. Mama Duck, I might have missed it, came in late. How big an aquarium is needed for the Goodeids? I think that a trio of those, I honestly think a 20 gallon is probably sufficient. I know breeders that would keep those in a 10 gallon. So, you know, that's a starting point. Yeah, I'm going to go with that. I think I'd do a 20 gallon personally. 20 long would be even better. But a 10's doable, I think. New friends. Hey, Dance Fish, we have our very first fry. It's here is Molly's. About 23 plus, and there'll be more. Yeah, that's not a bad first batch ever. Your first time ever getting baby fish. That's awesome, new friends. Yikes! They love BBS, baby brine shrimp, and microworms. I wanted to breed my rocket killies, but, well, this happened. Yeah, Molly's happened. I think that's a t-shirt idea. Like a picture of a Molly. It just says, like, a bunch of baby Mollies, you know, this happened, or Molly's happened, or something like that. Yeah. Well, congratulations. Have fun raising those up. Not a bad way to start with a batch of live bears. And how lucky are they that you're feeding them baby brine shrimp and microworms? That's awesome. Hope they do really well for you. Just keep the food in front of them and keep the water clean, and you should have no problems. Sparkling Gourami, thank you for getting everything situated and fixed for my previous order. Everything came in this week in really good shape, and the temps were spot on, shipped to South Carolina. Well, I'm glad it went well this time, Sparkling Gourami. I always wish it goes well every time, but when it doesn't, we try to make things right. So glad this time it went well. Thanks for being patient with us. Spanish pickles. I just got some leucistic African dwarf frogs. Oh yeah, yeah. I have a source for those, and they're supposed to be amazing. However, in order for me to get into amphibians, I have to get a whole different type of licensure from my local Fish and Game. They're a little nervous about amphibians, so I just haven't done it. But one day we'll pull that trigger. I hope they do awesome for you. Sounds cool. Curd Gunner, any tips on keeping North American darters? Yes, and I'm going to speak in generalities because there's lots of different species of darters that live in very different environments. Just to give you an example, there's something called a sand darter. I believe down in Florida is where that thing is, maybe into Georgia as well. And it lives kind of in swampy areas over sand and injects its eggs down into the sand when it breeds. Very different environment than, say, a rainbow darter, which tends to live in the riffles of creeks, in the fast-flowing, highly oxygenated water. So sand darters, swampy, stagnant. Rainbow darter, high oxygen, like kind of, I want to say kind of pristine. Like when you think of that clear mountain stream, you know, with the riffles and all that over the rocks, that's their habitat. So kind of very different. I'm going to assume you have a riffle darter because that's what most of the darters are. And the basic thing is to keep that in mind. The main thing about a riffle habitat is that the water there tends to be really highly oxygenated. It's moving so that it's absorbing all kinds of oxygen from its environment. And it tends to be pretty clean as well. So all those rocks and all those surfaces and all that water movement is like a big biofilter. So the main thing I think with keeping darters is well oxygenated water that's clean, not a lot of nitrogenous waste. Now I have found them to be pretty hardy, but that would be the starting point. Now, in addition, they're going to appreciate some current. They're going to appreciate some water movement. If those things are provided, I found them to be hardy, easy to keep. At first, I usually start them on live and frozen foods, but they'll learn to eat dry prepared foods in short order. Males are quite aggressive with each other. They like to display a lot, claim their little territories, and there will be some tussling. So you need not only enough room for the males to stake out their little territories, but enough little habitats. So the tank size matters, but what matters more almost is if you've made lots of different niches. You have a lot of like rocks laid up so there's line of sight breaks, and this one can claim this little niche and the other one can claim this little, hollow or whatever. That's pretty important. I think that's kind of the basics. Yeah, beautiful fish, really interesting behavior. They become like dog tame friendly. They'll come up and like beg for food once they get to know you. They'll be really shy at first, but once they get to know that you equal food, then they'll be quite happy to see you. Yeah. So that's my thoughts on North American darters. One thing I would recommend when sourcing your darters is to get them from places that experience warmer temperatures, because we tend to keep our aquariums, fairly warm. There are some darters that live up in the mountains or live in the more northern areas, and the water they're from tends to be quite a bit cooler. Those are going to be more difficult to keep in aquariums than a darter from, like Missouri, which is, more southern, or Alabama, something like that, more southern, where the temperature of their habitats in the summer at least will get, can get pretty high. So they're naturally accustomed to how warm we keep our aquariums. So, a cool down period in the winter is good for them. So I would highly recommend that as well. Yeah. And check out NANFA. Let me get you a link. North American Native Fish Association, nanfa.org. And if you go there and you scroll through their archive of articles, then you'll see a lot of information there on darters and how to keep them. Also, membership's worth it on NANFA. They release, I think it's a bi-monthly. I believe it's bi-monthly. I could be wrong about that. Magazine called Currents, and it's a good magazine. It's got really good information. So, yeah, I think it's totally worth it. Kelly Foreman has gifted 5 Dancefish memberships. Kelly, you spoil me. Thank you. Thank you for your continued support and for the weekly membership giveaways you do. I really appreciate you. Hope you and yours are doing fantastic. Get on the member train. Choo-choo, says Kelly. Been a member for 21 months. All right. All right. How long have we even had memberships? Not much longer than that, I don't think. So Kelly's an OG. Kelly, thanks. I really appreciate you. Scrolling here. Sorry, chat jumped on me. Trying to find. All right, the next one is Spinster Sister. Can male swordtails wave their gonopodium around like a flag at will? Oh, they do. Yes, they sure do. My pineapple veiltail boys either have ribbons or very lively gonopodiums. Can I assume that they are sexually mature? I don't know if they're sexually mature, but it's not long after the gonopodium forms that they become so. So, yeah, if they're waving their junk around, there's probably a reason. They're probably trying to flag some ladies. Yeah, live bears, man, they have no shame. Kate Toll, my blue glares came fat and happy. Temp was 77 for NC. Kate, thanks for letting us know. That's like, it's hard to say that I have a favorite fish, but I have a group of favorites, and that's in that group of favorites. The blue gularis is a fantastic fish. Just wait till they're 4 inches. Like how pretty they are now at what are they, around, I don't know, 1.5, 2 inches, something like that. Just wait until they're 4 to 5 inches. Oh, those things are stunning. Jay Cobble, I have 8 diamond tetras that are fin nipping each other. They're in a 30-gallon as I'm setting up their 55-gallon home. Any suggestions? It will be close to 3 weeks before I can move them. The only suggestion, I have 2 suggestions. One is to perhaps lower the temperature of their water a little bit. So I don't know what temperature you're keeping them at, but if it's up in the low 80s and you can knock the temperature down to, say, I don't know, 73 degrees or something like that, that lower temperature tends to calm the metabolism down. Maybe they'll get out of breeding mode and maybe won't nip each other as much. The other thing is I would suggest just keeping an eagle eye on water parameters. You want to keep that water nice and clean so that their fins can heal up and they don't end up with bacterial infections or something like that in the fins and get fin rot and all that horrible stuff. So those are my 2 suggestions. Lower the temperature, reasonable. We don't want to shock them. So do it slowly over a few days and keep the water really clean. That's what I would do. And also, are you observing them doing it? Or are you assuming they're doing it? Because sometimes we'll see ragged fins and think, oh, they're fin nipping, when in fact, no, there can be a protozoan infection, there can be a bacterial infection, there can be different things that cause ragged fins besides fin nipping. So if you're observing it, then it's a no-brainer. But if you're seeing ragged fins and no aggression, and then take some time and sit there and really watch the tank for a while. And if you never see them fin nip, then there might be something else going on. Although I hope not. I hope it's fin nipping. That's the easier problem to solve, I think. I might get a little noisy in here. We just had an import arrive, so that's getting unloaded right now out of the cargo van. So if there's extra noise and stuff, just bear with us till that's over. It can be a noisy process unloading an import. Alician AS, hello. I feel like it's been a minute since I've seen you. Any interest in Danakilus species? Ooh. What is that? Sakori, I have about 75 growing out. East African cichlid from Etruria. Warm water species, but does not need high temps, salinity in captivity. I've seen these when I went to Portland. I don't know if it's this exact species. I'm assuming this is a kind of soda cichlid. Let's take a look. Oh, this is different than the one I was thinking of. Is this a soda cichlid? Let's see. I'll have to do some research on them. Possibly. I don't know enough about that fish right now to answer that question, Alician. But first of all, congrats on raising them up. That seems like a really cool fish. But second, would you send us an email? hello@dansfish.com. That's HELLO@dansfish.com. And then that'll remind me to do a little research, and I'll see if I think that I can give them a proper home and stuff. I might be interested in that. That sounds like a pretty interesting species. Spanish pickles. I just had my first baby shrimp. Now I've got at least 15 to 25 babies and more with eggs. Congratulations. What kind of shrimp are they, Spanish pickles? I'm assuming they're like a cherry shrimp or something like that. Yeah. Once you get that shrimp colony rocking, it's amazing how quickly they'll multiply once you get the cycle started. Once that flywheel gets turning, those colonies can really boom. Okay, scrolling again because chat jumped. Hang on. Here we go. There it is, Car Gunner. Thank you. That is all really good info to have. I'll look into the NANFA membership. Yeah, NANFA is awesome. Jonathan Nadigo. I just received a snowball pleco from Dan's Fish. All right. Well, I hope it arrived in good shape, and I hope it thrives long term for you. And I think it will, because I know those. I know that tank, and those snowballs have been doing awesome. So hopefully they do great. Outside in aquatics. What is a good oddball fish for a 10-gallon? I'm thinking a centerpiece type fish. For a 10-gallon. Well, the good news is your centerpiece fish doesn't have to be too big. I mean, I think half beaks are pretty amazing. I think toothpick fish, although I don't know if they're big enough to be. Okay, so there's two ways to have a centerpiece fish. You can either have a good sized fish that kind of draws your attention, right? Or you can keep a group of smaller fish. So, you know, we've all seen pictures, or maybe we've seen in person, large tanks that maybe have a few, you know, big centerpiece fish in it with some others around them. But we've also seen big tanks that just have a big school of, say, cardinal tetras or something, and that becomes a centerpiece in aggregate. So it kind of depends on what you're thinking. I'm going to assume, the way you asked that question, that you're thinking of like a fairly, you know, a single fish that could be striking. And in a 10-gallon tank, it's a good centerpiece fish for a 10-gallon tank. You're saying oddball. I mean, I can think of a ton, but oddballs? Oh, I might need to visit the website and get some inspiration. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Like, I think the Elisoma evergladi is awesome. They're fairly small, though. Oh, peacock gudgeons. That's an amazing one, and that's definitely an oddball. That would fit the bill. Yeah, peacock gudgeon, for sure, would be awesome. What else? I mean, I don't know how we're going to beat peacock gudgeon, honestly. Let's see if anything else jumps out. So here's a toothpick fish. They're awesome. They're just small enough that I'm not sure I'd call them a centerpiece, but they are an oddball for sure. Pea puffers. I think pea puffers would be great little centerpiece fish, but they'd probably be the only fish too, because they tend to nip. So it's hard to keep other fish with them. Maybe some killies. There's some different types of killies that I think could be considered a centerpiece. They're pretty enough, and it, you know, 2 inches or so, that might be big enough. I mean, a group of these would be awesome. They're absolutely stunning, the red coral pencilfish and some of the other pencils. And pencils, I think, are an oddball as well. I think that qualifies. Let's see if we can find one more. Oddball and a centerpiece. Yeah, I think this killifish right here, Fundulopantrax emiati, it gets a couple inches and nicely colored. That would probably stand out as a centerpiece fish. I think the Empire gudgeons just get maybe a little too big for 10-gallon. You know, Betta sonorum, we just sold out, but there are some bettas, some wild-type bettas that I think would make an awesome centerpiece fish, as well as would some of the like chocolate gouramis or samurai gouramis, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Those are oddballs that could go in a 10-gallon. Brian Radovic, my pit bull pleco arrived yesterday, lively and active at 81.4. Now that is getting very specific. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate the temperature report, and I'm glad you got those. Yeah, that group of plecos has been awesome. And they've been breeding. In fact, those might be F1s that were raised here. I keep thinking that we sold out, and then we'd find babies, and then they grow up, and I keep thinking we sold out, but then they had babies, right? So, yeah. Dan Brown, how do you catch hill stream loaches from your tanks? So what I do is I find a piece of PVC pipe, say like 2.5, 3-inch PVC pipe, and I cut like a 6-inch section of that. And I cut a few of those, and then I put them in the tank upright, standing up. The hill stream loaches will go on those and graze the algae and stuff that starts growing on there. And then instead of trying to catch a loach and get it off the glass, all you have to do is, when they're all over the pipe, get the pipe in the net, and then you can lift the pipe up and kind of shake the hill stream loaches off of it. That's the trick we use here to harvest those. Because harvest, that's not the right term, to net those, to catch those. Because yeah, when they're on the glass, the only thing I know to do when they're on the glass is get the net, scooch them up to just above the water line, and wait until they decide to jump off. That's the only thing I know to do. And it takes forever. And it's got to be stressful on the fish. So I prefer the PVC pipe method. You can do it with a piece of driftwood or whatever. But, I mean, we're a warehouse. We use pipe. There's so many uses for PVC pipe. And you learn them all once you have a fish warehouse. Oink Master Supreme Forever. As a potential first-time keeper of glass head standards, would you recommend them as a species-only tank? I think I would. They are a scale eater, so they will nip the scales off of other species of fish. So I've been keeping them alone. Makes sense. Now, that's not a hard and fast rule. Right now, we're keeping our group with some pink-tailed chalceus, and they're doing fine. The chalceus are fast and kind of rugged, and I haven't seen any nipped fins at all. And they've been together for a couple months at least. So there are some fish that you can keep with them without any problem. But in general, I think I'd go species only tank, or at least have a plan B ready and keep a real close eye on the fish to make sure no shenanigans are happening. By the way, the glass head stander is really unique fish. That's a neat oddball fish. And hardy and easy to breed. Like babies just appear. We're not trying to breed them, but we'll frequently find babies growing up in there. What is a good cleaner upper fish to put with a red parrotfish, asks Holly. With a red parrot. I mean, I think a bushy-nosed pleco. That's what I'm going to go with. I think that's a good general kind of keep the algae off the glass, kind of clean up around fish. I mean, with any quote-unquote cleaner fish, you also want to make sure you feed that fish. Sometimes pet stores do a disservice by selling quote-unquote cleaner fish or sucker fish. And the idea is that they'll just eat all the junk in the aquarium and don't need to be fed. But it's rare that an aquarium produces enough food that you wouldn't need to actually feed the cleaner fish as well. So Holly, you might already know that, but just a public service announcement for anyone who might be brand new to keeping fish. But yeah, bushy-nosed pleco, I think that's a good all-around kind of scavenger type fish. Coro Wicks, is your channel big enough to enable live captions yet? Can you make a note to look into that for us? Increased accessibility won't hurt the hobby. Oh yeah, I'm all about increased accessibility. I'd like to do that. I don't have a clue if we're big enough yet. I haven't seen an option for it, but I can make a note. I really don't know anything about it. But thanks for the nudge, Coro. Lucas D. And it's a big D. That's why it's Lucas D. A two-part question. Do you plan on bringing in more Balzani? Do you think there will be increased interest in cichlids from southern South America with the restrictions on Brazil and Colombia? I do plan to bring in more Balzani and other Gymnogeophagus. but I don't think it'll be anytime soon. There's not a big market for those fish. So I can bring in a small group, it'll take me a little while to sell them, and then it doesn't make sense to like bring in more, keep them in stock regularly. So that's a fish that I bring in periodically to service those folks that are interested in it, but that's not a large group. So hang on, let me check something real quick. Okay. Sorry, I felt a draft, so I was checking to see if the door was left open, but it wasn't. Patrick Yoakum, will you have Tenopoma, what's that one? Cognicum for sale in the future, or would you know where to find any? Which one is that? There's only a couple Tenopoma that are kind of on my radar. One's the Microtenopoma and Sorgii, which isn't really a Tenopoma, closely related. One is Kingsley, and yes, this is one of them. Yes, this is one that I would be interested in bringing in. I don't have any plans to do it like today, but I'm still working on finding a good place to buy African fish, and there has been a little progress on that, but it's going to be a little while before I have anything more to say about that. It's still doing some stuff there. But is it Kingsley? Or is it Fasciatum? No, it's not Kingsley. It's a Tenopoma fasciolatum. Yeah, that's the other one. Looks very similar to the one you asked about. I think both of these are really cool looking. I like those kind of pearl spots with the more or less vertical stripes of the fasciolatum, and the one you said, which is, what is it? Congicum. Yeah. Yeah, I like those kinds. So there's a lot of Tenopoma species out there that I probably won't bring in just because I don't think there's any market for them. Some of them are, you know, kind of brown without much in the way of fin extensions or anything like that. But I have a supplier where I can find that kind of stuff. The problem is it's been, up till now, impossible to find a good, reliable supplier of fish out of the Congo specifically. So again, there's been some progress on that, but it's going to be a while before I have any more news. Yeah, no, I'll just leave it at that. Sean Rossell, do you think a pearl gourami is too big to use as a centerpiece in a 29-gallon? No, especially if you got a female. Oh, females get decent size too. I don't think I would keep a big full-size pearl gourami in anything probably less than a 40 breeder, something with a 3-foot footprint. But I think a 30 might be fine. They're not, the reason I think it might be okay is they're not a fish that is a super fast active swimmer, right? They're not like a hill trout or you know, one of those, some kind of rainbow shiner or something like that that's constantly on the move. They're a real kind of slow, sedate fish that just goes around and feels things with the little sensors on the ventral fins. Oh, that's cool. I can't show you guys this, but Johnny is showing me a bag of fish that we have been waiting on for, what, 8 months, 6 months, something like that. For months we've been trying to get these, and they just came, and they look good from here. Do they look good? All right. Oh, I'll be telling you all about them in a couple weeks. Oh, that's exciting. Cool. But anyway, pearl gouramis, you know, there's some fish that are smaller than a pearl gourami that I wouldn't keep in a 29-gallon because they're such rapid swimmers. They just seem to require space to move, right? They're little rockets jetting around in the water. But the pearl gourami, yeah, I think that might work. They just don't eat up a lot of room. Oh, I didn't answer part of Lucas D's question. The second part, do you think there will be increased interest in cichlids from Southern South America with the restrictions in Brazil and Colombia? I'm not sure. There's been restrictions before, and I've seen gymnogeophagines like pop up every now and then, but I don't think there's ever been like a craze for them. Nothing like you have with, you know, when Rift Lake cichlids or Apistogramma or Westies, West African, you know, Nanochromis and that kind of thing, Pelvicochromis. So I've just never seen that quite take off. And there's been restrictions several times in the past. So I don't know, Lucas. I wish they would, because, man, there's some absolutely amazing Gymnogeophagus. A lot of them stay smaller than your typical geophagus. They have amazing breeding rituals, really interesting kind of biparental behavior on a lot of them. And they can take cool temperatures. At least some of them can take it downright under the ice. So I have a friend that went collecting in Uruguay, and there was ice on top of the pond, you know. So depending on where it's from, they can be a real temperature tolerant group of fish. Yeah, I think they're fantastic. Spanish pickles, I'm building an orange Rilly army. All right, good for you. That seems like a ton of fun. Now, with Rillies, you're gonna have to like be careful. To keep a Rilly line looking nice, you have to be very selective with breeders. It's not something where you can just start a colony and let it ride. Every generation or so, you're gonna have to pick out the best ones, separate them, and let them breed to keep the line going. Otherwise, the kind of clear section between the colors, that'll all start getting really muddy and kind of disappear. Brian Simpson, getting one of your EB Jack Dempseys next week. Given their general reputation for being short-lived, any advice? Brian, I have found electric blue Jack Dempseys to be super hardy. No problem. Now, that being said, I have some adults I'm keeping now, but I've only had them for maybe a year or something like that. But I actually don't think the electric blue Jack Dempseys are a weak fish. Now, your normal Jack Dempsey is one of the hardiest fish ever to exist in the aquarium hobby, period. Compared to that, are they weaker? Maybe. But compared to your typical aquarium fish that you keep, I don't find them to be weaker. I don't find them to be a problem. I would say clean water and good food. The times when I have seen problems, it's a sourcing issue. So there's places I've sourced them from and they look great, but they're in horrible shape. Like they've been through the ringer. And there's other places I can source them from and they're rock solid. I know I won't lose any. So I think it's a sourcing issue. Now, that being said, I do know a breeder that works with electric blue Jack Dempseys, and when they first get them going, they do seem to be weaker than the normal Jack Dempseys by quite a bit. But I think by the time they're big enough to sell, I don't know. I just personally haven't had problems with them. If you talk to my breeder friend, though, he would tell you all kinds of problems with them. So my word is not the end-all, be-all. There's people out there that know more about them than I do. But speaking from my own experience, I have not... Electric blue Jack Dempseys have not been a problem. Okay, so here's a question. Anyone here that's bought electric blue Jack Dempseys from us, if you've done that, what's your experience been? Have they been hardy or have you had issues with them? Let's ask the group here and see if my perception is the same as everyone else's. Maybe everyone's having a different experience. Passing wind. Life goals this year, get fish from Dan's Fish. A worthy goal to be sure. Also, maybe prioritize that wind problem as well, passing wind. That might be a life goal. Holly, half-beaks are awesome. Oh yeah, there's so many neat half-beaks out there. Annie Hain, would 6 pygmy cories and a group of endlers be okay in a 10-gallon? Yes, for sure. Provided the 10-gallon is mature and stable and parameters are not gonna, it's not a new tank that parameters are gonna shift around on you. Man, I'd go for a dozen pygmy cories in a 10-gallon. with a group of endlers. I think that they like to be in big groups from what I have observed. And I think 6 you could definitely do. I think you could do 12 without even sweating. The Catfish Den, what is your recommendations for a database on live bearers? Wild species and captive morphs, some sort of planet catfish equivalent? You know, I don't consider myself a live bearer expert. So I'm not the end-all be-all when it comes to this, but here's what I've observed. There are some good sites out there for different kinds of live bearers. Some really good sites for endlers, some really good sites on like breeding fancy swordtails, and some of them are Facebook groups, some of them are websites, some, you know. But I don't think there is one site that kind of does them all. Not that I'm aware of. So yeah, I mean, man, I use Planet Catfish all the time. If there was a library site that was central that I could go to and get that kind of information, I would use that all the time too. So, I mean, to me, it sounds interesting. Mountaintop Puffer Keeper. Day 2 of my first batch of POW. I'm going to butcher the species name. Turgidus. I guess it is Turgid. Turgidus. Turns out puffer fry are still the most fun challenge for me. One day from BBS, currently feeding on filter media, harvested copepods and vinegar eels. All right. Well, congratulations on spawning the new species, and man, I hope they do well for me. For me. I hope they do well for you. Jeez. Oh, man. Talking's hard. I just realized the camera's a little high. There we go. My head was like barely floating in frame there. That's all right. It's cutting off my jowl, my double chin. KCM Aquatics, can you sell us a male and female electric blue jack Dempsey? Been waiting for a while now, but you're the most reliable. I wish I could, but they're like, the ones that we have for sale are, I don't know, an inch and a half, something like that. So they're not even close to sexable yet. They're just juveniles. I do have the large ones, the adults, but I'm not really selling those. If there was a local person in town that had a nice big tank and was like, fell in love with them, yeah, I would probably sell them to them. But barring that, I'm not interested in trying to sell like big full-size electric blue jack Dempseys. Plus, I kind of like those fish. They're kind of pets to me. Stephen White. How do you think Buenos Aires tetras would do in an outdoor pond? Excellent. They can take wide temperature fluctuations. They're tough as nails. I think they'd be a great choice in an outdoor pond. And it might be, let's see, albino. What I would do personally myself is I would go for the albino Buenos Aires tetra, because I think that it would be a lot easier to see them in a pond than a regular Buenos Aires tetra. The regular ones, you know, from ponds you're looking down from the top, and the top of a lot of fish, it's kind of hard to see, but see how much darker the top is on these fish? Fish are designed to be difficult to see from the top because there's a lot of birds out there that eat fish. And so they've kind of developed coloration where it's hard to see them if you're looking down into the pond. Their color and things are seen from the side, not so much from the top, most wild fish. So I would personally do the albinos because I think they'll show up better for you. But you know, you do you. Killers, Reptiles, and Aquatics throwing down a super chat. Thank you so much, Bob. I hope you're doing really well. And thanks for the generous super chat. And the guy doing jumping jacks. That is one excited super sticker. Dan Brown, awesome. Thanks for the help. I've been using a trap. Yeah, you can use traps as well to catch hill stream loaches, but I like the pipe. The pipe's my friend. I feel like I need to be Sherlock Holmes. I mean PVC, not the corn cob. Dan, the khaki nurse, any updates on the July open house? Yes, geez, I need to make a flyer for that. It's happening. We're doing the open house here at the Dan's Fish Warehouse, July 5th and 6th. The warehouse will be open to anyone that wants to come by and spend a day or two hanging out with other fish nerds and looking at 400 and I don't know, I think it's 450-ish tanks with cool fish. And we should have a pretty amazing importer ride before then. And so we should have some really cool stuff to see. Stuff that you might not have ever seen before. We'll feed you, we'll barbecue, and give you some food. So it's basic, it's totally casual. Come hang out, look at fish, talk with fish nerds, and get fed. If that seems like your kind of thing, then that's happening July 5th and 6th. So we did it last year, and it was pretty successful. And we're doing it again this year, and we'll see. It might grow to the point where it's an actual event that's organized and stuff. But right now, it's very casual. It's like, come by, hang out. Aquarium Glasser has an article on the Danakelia. As mentioned, mine do fine at about 80 degrees in tap water. They started to breed when I bumped the temperatures up to 85. Yeah. I just want to learn about them. I don't like to commit to a new species so I can get to know it a bit. Kurt Bruttine, will you have betta chinoides or alba marginata on the menu anytime soon? I think so. Let me see if I can, something I'm trying to do, let me see. I ordered a group. Let me see if they showed up on the final list here. Can't remember. Okay, hang on, I gotta find this attachment. Normally this is a lot quicker. Normally I can do this on the computer, but when I'm live I don't because I accidentally share screens wrong, and I'm always concerned I'll share someone's private information. Bettas. I think I ordered chinoides. It was either chinoides or alba marginata. And no, they did not make. I ordered them, but they did not have them. So no, it's going to be quite a while. This is the only source, the source I'm looking at here is the only source that I currently that's not true. Sometimes I can find wild type bettas around that are in good shape for a decent price, but normally that's few and far between. We have some Siam orientalis right now that are doing fantastic and are not expensive. Let me show you this. Betta Siam orientalis. It's basically like a betta embellis, one of the peaceful wild type betta. These guys, or anyone in that group. So those we were able to get those. Oh, I'm not showing them. These guys we have. Wow, Blackwater Aquatics has some. Those look nice. Just a really classic wild type, Splendens complex type betta. And we have some Smaragdina, which I'm sure I butchered. I have to read that name to remember how to pronounce it. But in general, it's difficult to find wild type bettas that have been sourced carefully and treated humanely and are still at a decent price. But I do have someone that I can order them from, but it looks like they're out right now. So I have other sources for them, but I never use them because this person does a good job and I can get them at a price where not only do they a good job with them, but they're reasonably priced. Any Daisy's rice fish on the menu? Oh, you'll see some very soon. We have a nice big group of Daisy's rice fish in quarantine right now. So, Little Dark Arts. Do you think a 33-gallon long aquarium is okay for tiger barbs long term? Absolutely. If so, how many would you recommend in that size tank? I don't know. I'd probably get. See here. That's a 4-foot long footprint. So it's like a 55-gallon that's shorter. It kind of, like, I think my instinct is to say I do about a dozen in there. And it kind of depends on how much, like space-wise, you could fit a dozen. That's a good footprint. But just depends on kind of what you want to do maintenance-wise. But I think a dozen is good. It spreads the aggression that tiger barbs have a little bit. And I like to crowd barbs. So, yeah. Camille Eon, any word about imports from West Africa? Still, I have a glimmer of hope, but it's going to be quite a while still. And it's just a glimmer. Like, I really don't know if it's going to be okay or not. Yeah. For those that don't know, I used to bring fish in from West Africa. And I still have a supplier in Nigeria that does an okay job. But the fish that I'm really going for are in the Congo itself and in the tributaries to it. And that requires us to go into the Democratic Republic of the Congo, which is really dangerous right now. And not only that, but there are some people that still do it and collect the fish and stuff, but I haven't found anyone that I've tried so far that I feel comfortable getting fish from. Just because in the past they've come in such bad shape. They've just been neglected really badly on the supply side and not treated humanely, and I don't want to be a part of that. But there is a supplier I've used in the past who reached out recently and looks like they are trying to do a better job. They sent me video and stuff of their stock, and it looks like it might be worth digging into more, but the problem is I already have a very large import of super rare fish from another part of the world in process right now. So I have to get through that one before I can turn my attention to the Congo one. So that's what I'm working on right now. And I've got a lot of verification and stuff that I need to do before I proceed with the Congo order. I've just been appalled so many times that I'm going to be really careful about it. I've always been careful, but I'm going to verify it 6 ways to Sunday. Okay. Montana AIDS. Montana, good to hear from you. Do you have any words of advice or tips? Sorry, I got to wet my whistle here. My throat's getting dry. Do you have any words of advice or tips and tricks for someone setting up their first small fish tank rack? 3 10 gallons per shelf. First of all, that sounds like a ton of fun. That's great when you get to the point you start building your first your first racks for fish tanks. You're probably savvy to this already, but my biggest advice would be 2 things. One would be get a central air pump. So get a pump that's strong enough that you can have one pump power all those aquariums. You can get a piece of PVC, drill valves into it, connect that PVC to your pump, and just have one central pump for the entire thing. That's really nice. A lot less electricity, a lot less noise. Yeah, that's the first bit of advice. The second would be, if you can, to figure out a way to heat the room instead of each individual tank. So I don't know how, I know there's 3 10 gallons per shelf. I don't know how many shelves you have, but it eventually gets to the point where it's like, why am I heating each individual aquarium? It's time to go for it and get heat the whole room. So those are the big things that I would suggest. Air pumps is the biggest. Just the amount of noise and stuff that will be reduced is amazing by going with the single air pump. Sorry. Oh, don't know what got in my throat, but you know when you get something just right in your, feels like you get a little, I don't know, little kernel of something stuck right in your voice box. Woo, that's what's going on right now. There's a lot of people in this chat that have built fish tank racks. What would be your advice for Montana if you were building your first rack? Jack, absolutely loving my new snow white bristlenose that arrived yesterday. The 4 are doing great, and hopefully you'll be able to get a pair from this group once they mature. I hope so. Please breed 1 million of them. I'd love to find a stateside source where I can get them in enough numbers that I don't have to import them. That would be great. Glad to hear that you got them, and yeah, hope they thrive for you. Okay, I hope I'm saying this right. The Phalaenopsis queen. Dare I look up what Phalaenopsis is? Oh, it's a moth orchid. Look at that's beautiful. Nice. The orchid queen. I got a group of cardinal tetras and have had them in my quarantine tank for 3 days. I lost 2 a day apart, upside down, then frantically swimming, then dead. pH 7.4. Could it be gill flukes? It certainly could be, but it could be a million things. That's the issue. First of all, did you get them from us? If you did, please let me know because I want to take care of you. I don't think so, though. I don't think we've had cardinal tetras available for a while. Have we? Did you get them from us? Because I want to make sure, if you did, I want to make sure you're taken care of, and I want to check the tanks to make sure they're doing okay. I don't think you did, though. But yes, it could be gill flukes. Could be so many different things. Oh, how would I approach this? Okay, so if this was a tank I had and these were my fish, here's what I would probably, how I'd approach this. I'm not a veterinarian or anything, just telling you what I might do. First thing I would do is check my parameters. Not so much pH, but ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. Is this a new aquarium? If it's a new aquarium, then I bet you anything that it's got to do something with unstable parameters and probably ammonia spikes or nitrite spikes. That would be my guess. So often in quarantine tanks, this can be an issue because quarantine tanks are often not bioactive systems. They're fairly empty. They might not have a good steady nitrifying bacterial colony in there. So all kinds of things can happen in quarantine tanks. So that's the first thing I would do. I've checked that. If that's all good and that's a stable tank and you're not worried that you're going to have parameter shifts, then are you seeing them flash? Does it seem like their gills are irritated? Are the gills swollen? Is their operculum like flanged out at the bottom? Anything like that? If so, then I would do one of two things. So the problem is that gill issues can be bacterial, they can be viral, they can be parasites, they can be lots of different types of each of those things. So I probably start with the easiest to use, easiest to source medications and go from there. Because if your parameters are good and you suspect some kind of pathogen, and we don't know which pathogen it would be, then you might as well start with the easy one, right? So I'd probably start with salt and Icex, both simple to use. And I'd use them together. Salt might kill your plants, but I would do about 5 to 8 grams per liter, so 5 to 8 parts per thousand. That's what I would do, and I would use that with Icex, just because those are both cheap and easy to find and easy to use. That's where I would start, I think, in that situation. But I suspect that it could be a situation, since you mentioned quarantine tank, that there's some nitrogenous spikes happening. It's very common in quarantine tanks. Alician, I heard that nothing is being shipped out of Brazil. Is their version of Fish and... Yeah, that's correct. Their version of Fish and Wildlife went on strike. Have you heard anything? Yeah, it's I don't know if it's so much Fish and Wildlife as it's like an environmental protection agency type thing happening. And maybe their equivalent of Fish and Wildlife is under that umbrella. But correct, there's a strike going on, so it's very, very difficult to get anything out of Brazil right now. And Colombia is shut down for the season. Fish will be available from Colombia in another month or so. I think this is good. They occasionally just close their fisheries to let the populations regenerate, to make sure things aren't being overfished. So I think that's great. Anytime a country is actually managing their wildlife resources, I'm on board. Fish for Life, 788. Have you tried a certain supplier of African fish located in Houston? I'm not going to talk any specifics. Hunter McLaren, my clown killie colony is exceptionally male heavy with perhaps 3 males to every female. Have you experienced this before? Yes, I've experienced that with almost, like, there's been times I've had killifish raised up all female, other times all male, sometimes good sex ratio. Not exactly sure what it is. There's been some studies that indicate that it could be a temperature thing. There's been some thoughts that it could be a pH thing, but I can't remember the specifics on clown killies. So I'd have to look into that. I don't know if there is a study on clown killies specifically. But yes, there are definitely things that can skew sex ratios in fish, and it's known to happen in live bears. It's known to happen in killifish, which are extremely closely related to live bears. Happens in rainbow fish. I'm thinking of Melanitania calitawa specifically. Others as well. Happens in cichlids. Yes, it can happen. And often it's to do with temperature. Oh, let's see here. But Hunter, man, my best suggestion would be play with temperature. Kerr Gunner, I have a 40-gallon Hillstream tank that has a lot of hair algae and was wondering if you knew of anything that can tolerate room temperatures and high flow that will eat some of that. Absolutely, a monoshrimp. A monoshrimp are your friend in that situation. A monoshrimp can take a wide range of temperatures. Let's see. A monoshrimp temperature range. Well, right here it says 68 to 79 degrees. I think they can go quite a bit cooler than that. Let me look. A monoshrimp natural range. I think they're in Japan, right? Yeah, okay. Freshwater rivers in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. Yeah, these things can take it cold. They have a large temperature range. Any Fish Will Do threw $5 at us. Thank you so much, Any Fish Will Do. Much, much appreciated. Thanks for the super chat. Okay, Camille, Microtenopoma and Sorgii used to have a cool group, have a short video on my profile, or whatever, super colorful, betta-like small West African. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah, and Sorgii is wonderful little fish, for sure. One of the most underrated, I think, of the anabantoids, anabantids. There's some proper way to say it, and I always get it wrong. Kurt Gunner, I have a 40-gallon Hillstream tank that has, already got that one. Mike, can you tell us about your green neon tetra stock in general? The main thing is this is the hardiest group of green neon tetras I've ever had. They're fat, they're sassy. Often when we get green neon tetras in, it takes a while to nurse them back to health. Often there's been issues in the supply chain. This group, doing awesome. So we feed them a variety of foods. We feed them, let's see here. I rotate between Extreme Krill Flakes, Zoomed Spirulina 20, and sinking algae wafers and sinking protein wafers. Kind of rotate that around. Occasionally I'll give them some frozen brine shrimp or something like that as well. They're in the tank with some reticulated hill stream loaches, and everyone gets along famously. So yeah, best batch I've had ever. Daphne Miller, Cheyenne local breeder here. I have a ton of platinum and Daisy's rice fish fry. How big would they need to be to sell? Yeah, as soon as they're sexable. What's that? Around 3/4 of an inch? 3/4 of an inch to an inch? Something like that. And man, I'd love to buy those from you. Especially the platinum Madakas. I've had a really hard time finding those. New friends. Do you know if there's somewhere to learn about the human impact of the tropical fish trade, like working conditions and compensation? May not be good for a live stream though. Oh, I talk about the good, bad, and the ugly of this industry on this live stream. Yeah. There are definitely some studies and some articles on that, but I don't think there's one about the situation as a whole because each area is so different. But yeah, you can look up the fisheries like Project Piaba's like the poster child. There's also a really well-managed fishery in India surrounding the Roseline Barb. There's quite a bit of information out there. Sure. I read quite a bit about the industry. Matt, I mean, not as much as I'd like, but yeah. Matt M, do you know if the spike-tailed paradise fish are Cupanus or Dei? I believe Dei has 2 stripes down the head body and Cupanus do not. Super cool fish. Would they be okay with a blocky eye? Yeah, I think they get along just fine with Aplochilus blocky eye. I don't know. Do we know which one they are?
They're sold as Dei.
Yeah, they're sold as Dei. They have 1 stripe or 2 down the body. We're not quite sure. We think 1, but I don't have them in front of me right now. I don't know for sure. Yeah. I actually think they were listed as it was either Dei Cupanus or Cupanus Dei, I believe. On the listing, and then I think the invoice said one or the other. Johnny's looking it up right now. They're listed as Cupanus Dei. Yeah. So whatever that means, they were sold to us as Cupanus Dei. I'll have to go look at the stripes. I don't know. Would you send us an email, hello@dancefish.com, and ask us if they have 1 or 2 stripes, and we'll take a look. Benjamin Peters, please show Dancefish how much you appreciate the information and giveaways by leaving a like. Like us, please. Thank you, Benjamin. Appreciate the support. By the way, how many likes do we have? I don't even know. 180 likes and 376 viewers. Hey, hello to all the viewers. Thanks for coming and spending some time with us. Oh no, chat jumped. I'm scrolling. Scrolling. Whew. Sheesh. Holy cow. Wow, I'm still scrolling. Chat jumped big time. The next one I can see is Colton Sam says, any recommendations on a centerpiece top dueling fish for my planted 125-gallon planted tank? Excuse me, they would get along with Battis and Apistos. Yeah, 2 recommendations. One is half-beaks and one is hatchetfish. I do a big group of half-beaks or a big group of hatchetfish. And I think those would be absolutely amazing up there. You could do some of the top dueling killifish as well. Some of the Aplochilus species. Those are kind of neat. Alphonse asked if I've ever kept a topaz puffer. I have not. Although, let me see, because that's a common name, what that is. Oh, okay. So that is a species that I have not kept. For those that are wondering, it's This looks like the topaz puffer here. So that's a brackish, kind of salty water fish. I only keep pure freshwater fish right now. I've never kept any of the brackish water puffers, just the pure freshies. KCM Aquatics, we don't live near, but I would buy the bigger ones for our 800-gallon ponds. Oh yeah, they look awesome in there actually. I don't know if I'm too keen on shipping them, but you know, send us an email, KCM Aquatics, if you don't mind, hello@dansfish.com, and I'll take a look at it and think on it when I'm not, you know, when I don't have camera brain. Let's see here. I ordered the golden mono shrimp and they are so neat, enjoying life in a plant grow out tank, and I just ordered the other 4 today. I'm glad you like them. When we first got those, we weren't like super impressed with them, but then a couple of them kind of grew a little bigger and molted, and then we were like, Johnny and I were looking at them going like, oh, now we get it. Like they developed these fine gold lines on them, like little striations. So now I think they actually might be kind of worth the price. Spinster Sister, is there a tartar sauce fund we can contribute for the open house? I don't think any of the fish in her are eating size. No, that's not true. The mountain grunters are eating size. Mountaintop Puffer Keeper, you had me as super rare. I'm intrigued. Oh yeah. Yeah. We have some cool stuff. Just so I can, Bosemani Itinjo work in a community tank with pseudomugil and our forktail blue eyes. I wonder if a full-grown Bosemani might eat the smaller rainbows. Yeah, I think the size difference there is enough that I would be concerned. There are some pseudomugil types that get a little bigger, a little thicker bodied. But so could it work? Yeah. Do I think it's an ideal thing? It's probably not. It's not something that I would personally want to do. But I'm thinking like, it's not really a pseudomugil, but some of the Signifer rainbows get big enough. Is it Signifer? Sorry, Celebi's rainbows get big enough that, well, some of the Signifers get decent size too. I think some of those get around 2 inches. But some of the Celebi's rainbows, not technically a pseudomugil, but rainbow-ish, those might be okay. They get decent sized. In your experience, how does Xiphophorus pygmaeus age? Trying to figure out if mine have parasites I need to treat or just reaching the end of life. The babies look fine. Brian, I don't have a whole lot of experience with pygmaeus. I think I've only ever had one group of those, so I don't know if I'm really qualified to say. Killers Aquatics, Reptiles and Aquatics, throwing down a super chat, and Pippi Longstocking, and reminding me it's about time to do the giveaway. Thank you, Bob. Thanks for the reminder. I second the air pump tip. I wish I went a step up from the one I got because the noise. I actually need 2 to push enough air to every tank. Running air to 19. Yeah. I know Aquarium Co-op has some linear piston pumps. Those are silent. I mean, not silent. They're moving air, but they're quiet. Quiet enough that I think you could probably have them in your bedroom and they probably wouldn't bother you. And if you go to Dan's Fish and click on, let me show you here. You go to Dan's Fish and scroll down to the Aquarium Co-op and click there and buy it, then we'll get a little kickback. That'll help our business. Other sources, though, just to be fair, Gemco. Gemco's a good source. I've bought both linear air piston pumps and some of their diaphragm pumps, and they have some diaphragm pumps that are pretty quiet as well. They need more maintenance, though. The diaphragms tend to need to be replaced every 6 months to every year, if I remember right. Nathan, it's running air to 10 tanks from 10 gallons to 55 gallons. All right, I got you, Nathan. I got you. Okay, we'll do one more before the giveaway here. Jody P. Would you expect to get the golden mono shrimp back in stock again? They are gorgeous. Yes. Yes. Now that I see how cool they actually are, I do plan to bring more in. Okay. Let's do the giveaway. So this is for a trio of Skiffia multipunctata donated by Ed Motes, Ed's Aquatic Exotics on Get Gills. Here's his store if you want to shop his other stuff. And it is right here. Here's Nightbot. So there are 253 eligible users, and the winner is Dan Khaki Nurse. Hey, Khaki Nurse. Congratulations. You have won a trio of Goodeids from Ed. If you wouldn't mind, you've got to chime in the chat in the next 2 minutes and let us know you're here. And I think you are, because I read a comment from you. 2-minute Google timer. All right, time's ticking. 2 minutes. Just leave us any chat, Dan, and the winnings will be yours. Cool videos from a cool guy. My aquarium update. My red-tailed Dalmatian platy passed, and I replaced it with a blue neon wag male platy. Also, there was one male left, and it took the guy 10 minutes to catch him. Oh, jeez. Yeah, I know. I feel for that guy. We have some fish here that are nigh impossible to catch. It's like you get your assignment. It's like, hey, would you go pull these fish? It's like, yeah, those are. Oh no, I'm going to be there for an hour. By the way, Kalitawa, really cool rainbow fish, very hard to catch. I don't know why. Okay, scrolling here. Oh, shoot. I was just about to get to the Orchid Queen. I'm going to say Orchid Queen because I can't pronounce that genus name for the life of me. Oh, where is it? Thank you for taking the time to answer my question. To follow up, I did not source them from you. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. I didn't think so because I know that we've been short on cardinal tetras for a little while. Parameters are 0010 for, I'm assuming that's ammonia, nitrite, and nitrate. Okay. Okay, yeah, it's probably not nitrogenous issue then. Yeah. Well, I hope it works out. It's pretty rough when all you see is symptoms that could be caused by many different things, right? That's a hard one. I hope we get lucky. Okay. Oh, time's up. It has been 2 minutes. Let's see. Did Khaki Nurse? Oh, no. Oh, yeah. Khaki Nurse is in the house. Dan is in the house. Dan's fish, present and accounted for. Okay. So, Dan, Khaki Nurse, I think you know what to do. Please send us an email with your... Actually, all I need you to do, I don't need your mailing address. I just need your... Send us an email, and we'll forward that to Ed. Ed is the one that's going to be mailing you those amazing Goodeids. Thanks again, Ed, for donating those. Really generous of you. Last week and this week, thank you so much for your help, for your support. I have 1 minute. Okay, I can do one more. Nathan Hovey. I just want to give a thanks to you and Johnny for the trimming puffer teeth video. I watched it a couple times after last Wednesday's live, and it wasn't as nerve-wracking as it seems. Yeah, I agree. Once you do it, it's like, oh, that's it. It's not so bad. Yeah. Glad it went well for you. Is Fluffy Cow coming to visit? Hello, and thank you for the stream. Hope to make it in July. About to order before then to fill some empty tanks. Finally got the big fish moved. All right, we'll keep an eye out for your order, Fluffy Cow. And yeah, hope you can make it in July. It should be a good time. It was a good time last year, and that was like just a shot in the dark. Had no idea if anyone would show up at all, but it was kind of fun. So I think this year will be bigger and better. All right, with that, we're going to sign off. I want to thank the moderators for being here and doing the mods. Really appreciate it. All the members of the channel, thanks for being a member of the Fishmonger crew. I think I'm going to change the name, though, to the Danios and Danionellas. I think that's just too good not to. Just have to find a moment to do it. Excuse me. Still got that tickle in my throat. All right, where was I? Oh, everyone that donated memberships, thank you. Everyone that threw money at us in the form of super chats, thank you. Every little bit helps and is appreciated. If you were active in the chat, thanks for being a participant. If you weren't, I still love you. Hail the Lurker Nation. If you're watching this on replay, hello from the past. And if you're listening to the podcast, hello. Thanks for listening. All right, we'll be back next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Till then, have a good one. Bye-bye, y'all.